The Blocktalk podcast started because of my passion for the property management industry. I wanted to start a conversation and add some value within the industry with a diverse range of people and professionals who can add something extra. As we start out, my aim is that the podcast offers some useful insight into a variety of views, opinions, thoughts, and foresights from our guests, who include business leaders and industry experts. If you enjoy the podcast and want to find out any other information, head on over to brianwelsh.co.uk.
Welcome to the first Blocktalk podcast of 2022, and for this special episode, it's me, Jaxx Bruce, who will be hosting. We'd like to thank all of our guests and listeners who joined us in 2021. And just before we kick off our health and wellness series, we are catching up with Brian Welsh, MD of CPL Software, Blockworx and INSPCT, and he is the chairman of another software company, Insight Legal. Brian is a certified Gallup Strengths coach, and he is the usual host of the Blocktalk podcast. And Brian also has a cute cockapoo called Arthur. So how's life, Brian? What's happening?
Life is good, actually. Life is good. I am in the middle of renovating a house at the moment. So it is, podcast, then trips to the tip and such like things. And I'm just going to correct you on one thing. Arthur is not a cockapoo. Arthur is a miniature golden doodle, but you are right. He's very cute.
Yeah, the cute bit's right. That's all. So let's get started. So first of all, give me a quick run through of your career and how you got to this point.
Okay, so wow, right. So I've been in software my entire life. I started off as a developer, a COBOL developer actually, which not too many people will actually. Well, they'd have to be a fair age to know what that was. I probably wasn't the best developer in the world. I don't think I was. I certainly lent far more towards kind of business relationships and project work and these sort of things in my career. But I worked for the same company for pretty much 13 years, and then we were bought. It was a legal software firm. We were bought by an English company, and that kind of really opened my eyes to business and these sort of things. I had a great MD in that company, taught me a huge amount, but not only about business, about people, what people take and these sort of things. And then in 2007, we were bought by, or sold on to a very large equity-backed software company. Who were basically consolidating the legal software industry, who 2 days later then merged with an even bigger company. And I went from working for a company in the beginning that kind of had 13 staff to being working for the 5th largest software company in the UK, but at the time the largest privately owned. It was interesting, and it was very, very different as well. And I had a few bosses in that role, but the job I ended up having in that business was doing basically the operational side of M&A. So whenever this company bought another legal software firm, I was pitched in to basically run it, look at it, review it, and integrate it into the larger business. And it was, don't get me wrong, it was really interesting work, and I loved it. I was not popular because it was one of those jobs where you had to make a business profitable. You were doing a huge amount of integration, and people lost their jobs. But all those people went. I mean, I know quite a few of these people still, and they went on to better things and different things. And I guess the show of someone's mettle is how they deal with these things and what they do afterwards. It's great for the guys who keep their jobs, but the guys who don't then have a great opportunity to move on and do something else. And I've always viewed it as that as well. So I did that for about 3 years up until about 2010, and the 2009 financial crash meant that the kind of acquisitions dried up, and I thought, what else am I going to do? And I was offered a role running a business down in Bournemouth, I think it was. Not really something I wanted to do. Don't get me wrong, I was traveling up and down the road a lot from kind of Scotland to London and stuff, but not really something I wanted to do. So I approached them and said, because the business I'd worked for initially had a as well as a legal software firm, they did a lot of commercial software as well, just generic commercial software that had a fairly dated kind of commercial accountancy package. But it had a decent probably factoring product. So I effectively did a management buyout of that side of the original business I'd owned, and I started that up, and that was back in 2010. There was me and one other person from in Scotland, and then a couple of developers down south, because I'd worked a lot in the south. I'd met a few people, developers and things like that, so it was logical to kind of employ people I knew. So hence the reason that CPL actually has an office in Glasgow and an office in Southampton, because it's when we started. And that was the start of CPL. So we had kind of one property factoring client, and we now have about 40 and do about 90% of the private market in Scotland. So that's brilliant. It's been a great. I love that job. I love the market. I know a lot of people in it, and it's brilliant. And then a couple of years after that, so I left and I had a non-compete for legal software. A couple of years later, Tim put a call into me to ask if I wanted to get involved in Insight Legal. And don't get me wrong, I've worked for legal software firms, but it's not something I'm a domain expert on in any stretch of the imagination, like I am in the kind of property factoring side. But Insight was looking for some funding, didn't really want to go external, gave me an opportunity to get involved, and I jumped at the chance. I worked with Tim in one of the businesses that I'd ran down south, and we remained friends, and still are, and I was happy to get involved in it, and still am, very grateful for the opportunity to still be involved in it. So nowadays, I kind of, as you mentioned at the beginning, I run CPL Inspect. We also have our Blockworx products as well, and I'm the chairman of Insight, which is great as well, because it gives me just a chance to me, life nowadays is more about kind of leadership and these sort of things. It gives me a chance to challenge ideas and challenge how we do things, and just because you do something for 2 years or 10 years, it doesn't mean it's right. So
yeah.
That's got me to where I am now.
Yeah, cool. Brilliant. So throughout all of that progression to where you are now, what's been the most challenging part of being your own boss?
In the beginning, it was having enough money to pay staff at the end of the month. That's got to be a challenge. I said, even when you work for a recurring revenue business where you're almost guaranteed your income, you still want to keep, I had a goal to keep kind of 6 months money in the bank, and we got there reasonably quickly. So that means you don't have to start selling things to pay salaries. And one of the things that I always wanted to do was I didn't want to go back into the world of having investors who weren't involved in the business. I didn't want to go private money and all that sort of stuff, or VC back. So it was important to me to get to that kind of position. But I think the biggest challenge is finding talented people. It's always been difficult. I think it's always been a challenge to find really good people, and we've succeeded in the majority of our cases. But now, sitting kind of 2022, there's a massive shortage of people out there, good people, especially developers. Finding decent developers at the moment is almost impossible. So that's, I think, the biggest challenge is the people, especially when you work for someone smaller, because especially when you work for someone smaller or a smaller business, because they've got to kind of gel as well with the rest of the team. So you can find someone who's on paper and also ability wise is absolutely fabulous, but if they don't gel and they don't fit the culture of your business, then it's not going to work, and all they're going to do is if I can swear slightly, is piss off other people,
Yeah.
And that to me is the biggest challenge, is finding that. But also it's the biggest challenge, but it's also the thing I love. And one of the reasons that I certified as a Clifton Strengths coach.
Yeah. It's so important that personalities fit. People spend so much time in the office at their work as well, that from a business perspective is important, but also from I suppose a personal perspective. If people are happy at their work, then they're going to do a better job for you, aren't they? So
yeah, I mean, there's the obvious upside of that, but yeah, I mean, you do. I mean, you spend more time with your work colleagues. Well, okay, maybe not in the last 2 years, but in a normal office environment, I mean, you spend more time with your work colleagues than you probably do with the people you live with. So to be in a situation where you're not, you don't enjoy that. What God? Why would you do it? And that's something I'm passionate about. That
yeah. So talking about things you're passionate about, what gets you out of bed in the morning?
Success. Yeah, I like to succeed.
What's that then? What does success?
Well, okay. So one of the things. Okay, so I would. This is bizarre because one of the things that I always laugh about is how the hell did I get to 50 and not know some of the stuff that I now know. And one of those is Clifton. So one of my top 5. So Clifton Strengths is owned by Gallup, and you effectively do an assessment. There's 34 strengths, and you have your you get your top 5 and your top 10, and it kind of sorts you into who you are. And one of my top strengths is competition. Yeah. So there's great things about every strength. There's also blind spots and things you need to think about. So for me, success is advancing in some way on a daily basis. Making sure that your clients get what they need and get what they deserve, but also making sure your team are happy and productive and performing as well. And so success to me is a whole raft of things. But I've always been concerned more about how other people fare than how I fare. I mean, success is obviously financial as well. You can't run a business if it's not successful, profitable, and financially. Well, I can anyway. But success is a whole raft more than that. It's all about your team growing and individuals growing to within their roles.
Yeah. So do you find a bit of a curveball question? Do you find the Clifton Strengths, you said that it's important that you get the right people in the business who work together. Is Clifton Strengths something that you did because that was something that was becoming more important, or as a way to help you identify that? How did you...
I think it was. I've talked about this on LinkedIn before, actually. I was assessed by one of my bosses. It must have been about 2008, 2009. I walked into a room and I had someone talk to me and ask me a whole raft of questions. And I came out at the end of it, and it was like, yeah, you're good at this, you're good at that, you're good at that, but your relationship building and people skills are not very good. Great, okay. What can I do with that? Well, your boss just wanted to know what kind of skills he had in his senior team. And I'm like, yeah, okay, but what do I get out of this? And I didn't get anything out of it. Yeah. And it was so frustrating. And I went through 12 years going, yes, okay, I'm a shit boss. Okay, I apologize for swearing. But, that's what I effectively got from that. So actually, the person who did that should not be doing it, because, I mean, she may have got out of it what she wanted out of it, but I didn't get anything out of it. And that was frustrating. And then I decided to kind of get myself a business coach. Well, actually, to be fair, I didn't decide to get myself a business coach. Someone introduced me to a guy called Oliver Hill, who was on last year in the podcast. Someone introduced me to him, and And the first thing he did was say, "I want," because he's a certified Clifton coach, a very good one as well, actually. And he said to me, "I want you to do this assessment." And I went, "Not a chance." I said, "I've done this before. It's of no good." And he said, "No, Brian." He said, "I've seen these before. The difference with Clifton is it actually gives you stuff you can work with." And he was absolutely right. I was utterly skeptical, but he was actually correct. And the great thing about it is, you're someone else once said to me, who this was pre me knowing Oliver, someone said to me, yeah, we should get everyone to do Clifton, because this person did actually introduce me to it in a negative way. And then what we do is, this guy was a sales manager, and he said, we get Clifton and we check what the top 5 is, and we only employ people who have the same top 5 as me. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And that is utter rubbish,
Yeah.
And so when you've got non-certified people who are trying to give you some advice on this stuff, it's just awful.
Yeah.
Anyway, so coming back to Clifton, you really are looking to have a combination of a whole raft of strengths in your team. So when you build a team, look at what the strengths you already have are, and then look at what other people can bring into that team, and that to me is so powerful. I mean, my number one strength is ideation. So I kind of sit in the strategy and influencing world in my top kind of 5, top 10. You don't see a relationship or people strength till you get to about 13 and 14, and at 13 and 14, that's really not popping up for me that often. Yeah, my number 34 is empathy. Now, the one thing you've got to be careful about is the name of it. Don't go and get the English definition. They have meanings within Clifton that may be different to the English language. So certainly don't go and pick up a dictionary and go, there's a definition of empathy, Brian doesn't have any, because that's not true. But what it does mean is, I mean, so someone comes up with an idea and I go, that's fabulous, right? That's going to be great for the client. It's going to be great for our bottom line, all win, 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 win. And then someone else in the room is going to go, but how are the team going to feel about this? And it's not entered my head.
Yeah, sure.
And if I want it to enter my head, I've got to write it down a bit of paper and go, how will the team feel about this? And that's why you need an array and a combination of these strengths within your team. Because if someone else in the team sitting there going with high empathy, going, yeah, okay, but I think that might we need to be careful about how we do X, Y, and Z, because we've got to make sure the team are on board with us and these sort of things. And that's why you've got to keep people like that in your life and in your team.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you've said that success is a big thing for you. So just going to finish before we move on to the quickie questions by asking what drives you. Is it something different to success that drives you, or is that questions that gets you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, I think. Maybe it's a bit similar. I mean, what drives me now is entirely different than what drove me a year ago and what drove me 5 years ago. I think it changes dramatically. What drives me right now is leadership, is making sure that the leaders in the businesses that I have an interest in all understand the difference between a kind of coaching style and a managing style, and I'm very much on the coaching side of that. I'd much rather make sure that everyone every leader uses a coaching kind of methodology to the way in which they approach the teams within the organization and things like that. It's so important. I mean, I'm going to swear again. I've had some really shit managers in my time, and really shit bosses, and there's no need for it. There's no need for it. There is, there's absolutely no need for it. So what drives me now is to develop personally into a better leader and a better person when it comes to that sort of stuff, but also to make sure that other people do as well.
Yeah, excellent. So as we always do with the podcasts, we have 3 quirky questions, and we've actually got a extra special question on the end for you with this one as well. So we'll start off by asking the normal 3. What's your biggest failure across your entire career, and what did you learn from it?
I've done some investing over the years, and I'm not talking about kind of buying shares and stuff like that. Although my son takes great pleasure in showing me where his Bitcoin investments are on a month-to-month basis. You can tell much against it, but anyway, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about kind of putting money into other businesses, and I did one. I'll not mention the name, but I did one. And I didn't lose a huge amount of money. I mean, it didn't go anywhere, but I didn't lose a huge amount of money. But for the money I lost, I learned a huge amount about how I should have done it, and it was different to how I did do it. And I think everything I now talk about, it's leadership and people and all of these sort of things. Make sure you get into bed with the right kind of people, but also make sure you do your due diligence. Mm-hmm. And one of the challenges I have with my strengths is I'm quite a high activator, which means that I want to start things. Okay, so here's an idea, let's go do it, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Whereas, for want of a better expression, I need someone to check my homework. Yeah, and go, is this a good idea? Okay, and that's what I didn't have at that time. And at the end of the day, there's a huge amount of strength envying Clifton. Oh, I wish I had this, and I wish I had that. And it's like, you are who you are. You've got to live with it, no matter how much. I mean, I could try for 100 years, and I won't be alive that long. I could try for 20 years to have high empathy, and I'll fail because it's just not me. And it's always, sorry, I'm now completely going off the question, but it's like I used to walk into an annual review with my boss. Right, let's look at your weaknesses. Why the hell are you looking at my weaknesses? Let's look at the things I'm good at and make me better at them, because you're never going to make me good at the things I just am not built to do. Let's get someone else in to do these sort of things. So yeah, I stuck some money in something. It didn't work. I learned a huge amount from it. And actually, and one of the things I'd like to do, I'm 51, nearly 52, but I'm and I think I said about 6 years ago, I'm never going to start another one. But I actually quite fancy it, doing another couple, because I think I have a lot to give. I think I have a lot of experience in kind of growing businesses. And I'm not talking about 400 people businesses. The businesses I'm involved in, are reasonably small, but they can still be very successful, both financially and very rewarding from a personal point of view as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. So if you ruled the world for a day, what would you do?
Okay, this is a great question, and it's one that I always laugh. I don't laugh, but wait to see what people say when you ask them when we're doing the podcast. Actually, we had someone that we recorded recently who gave a great answer to this. But actually, if I ruled the world for a day, I would get rid of all the shit leaders in the world. Yeah. And I know that's I mean, there's a bit of a. I'm sorry for swearing. Most people know that it happens, and there's no point in me hiding who I am. I see people, and I see how business owners and managers act towards their team, and honestly, there's just no need for it. And I think people think just because they own a business they're better than everyone else, and that's just absolute rubbish. Just because I own a business does not mean that I'm the best person to do everything. Surround yourself with people who are better than you are, and you'll get on better as long as your ego can cope with that. But yeah, I mean, I am fully aware of what I'm good at and what I'm not good at. So yeah, I would sack all the shit leaders in the world.
Good to cool. So when you're 70 and look back at your life, what will you be glad you did or feel proud of? Something you've either done already or something that you want to do?
I think I had this conversation with someone the other day. So I also, one of my top strengths is also significance. which can be a real bitch. Actually, it's real. It's something that is difficult to work with sometimes. Yeah, but one of the well, how significant certainly plays out with me is wanting to kind of make a difference and wanting to leave a legacy. And
you want to feel significant, is that?
No. I don't. Well, I don't necessarily. My ego doesn't want to. Well, okay. If you were to ask me, leaving Clifton out of it, if you're asking me if I want to feel significant, probably not.
Right.
But how it plays out for me is making a difference. So
Right.
So for that, I just mean that, you know. So we deal with most of the property facts in Scotland in CPL. So it's making sure that we make their lives easier to do their job and all of those sort of things. But I guess I'm trying to build a legacy for my kids as well, something that they can probably be proud of when they look back and said, you know, my dad did that. That's kind of important to me, I guess. But it's more about making sure that all of the, you know, people look back and go, that was a great company I worked for, or looking back going, that's a great sorry, let me start that again. So looking back and going, that's a great company to work for, or looking back and going, that company, you know, made my company be able to move on and do something that nobody else would have done or been able to do from a software point of view.
Yeah, excellent, cool. And just one final question then, if you could give yourself one piece of advice when you started out, what would that be?
The world is not perfect. I grew up in an environment where I thought that, you know, everyone had it sorted and everyone had it nailed and all of these sort of things. And if I'd known when I was 20 that everyone was bloody winging it, well, not everybody, you know what I mean, though, that everyone did not have it absolutely nailed and it wasn't absolutely perfect, I think my earlier business years would have been entirely different.
Yeah.
If you understand what I mean.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it's a strange world. Even more strange now, but yeah,
very true. And let's hope we get back to some normality in the next few months.
Yeah, better than the normal that was before, I think, for a lot of people.
Well, absolutely. And I think because people have had to learn to comes back to things I've been talking about. People have had to come to terms and have their teams working from home. Whereas, you know, you ask most people before this, would you allow someone to work from home? No way, because they'll not do enough work. They'll walk their dog or they'll wash their dishes and stuff like that. And yeah, I walk my dog and I wash my dishes, but I'm still productive and do my job, you know. So I actually think that it's taken leap and bounds in from a and I hate this word, managing people point of view, that could never have been taken if it wasn't for this happening. So, you got to take the good out of the bad and learn from it.
Yeah. I think the same people that would waste time at home or would waste time equally in the office. You know, I don't think if you have a work ethic, then it's not going to. There might be a wee bit more distractions in the house, but and that's still get your work done, you know.
Yeah, so. And that's the whole point of employing A players. You know, employ A players, you don't have that issue anyway. So actually, it's not their issue; it's yours.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Brian. That was really good.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jaxx, and I will speak to you soon.
Catch you soon.
Bye-bye.